Tuesday or morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be looking at us. My name is David Wilson, the Business Savage, on air talent here on IBGR every Wednesday at 3 p.m. New York time on The Savvy Show. And it is my pleasure to open and MC the very first business growth forum here for IBGR. So let's hear a round of applause out there, louder so I can hear you. Yes. All right. Welcome everyone from all over the world. We're going to have a marvelous time today. Now, our goal this morning, afternoon, or evening is that you will experience at least one platinum nugget, one aha moment, one savvy shift, if you will, as I say on my show, that will make you a better entrepreneur than you were before you got here. Is that okay? And since we're virtual, we're not in person like we may be at some point in the future. Hopefully, I'm going to need you guys to emote for me. I'm going to need you to clap. I'm going to need you to love. I'm going to need you to laugh electronically via emoji. So let's see some emojis. Let's see some claps, hearts, whatever else is in there. There we go. More of them. Fill up the screen. There you go. All right. And that kind of lets me know I'm doing okay, because my self-esteem issues and such. But that's a different story. Let's move on. All right. So what we have for you today is a combination of panel discussions, presentations, and networking by experts from all over the world. And I'm sure you'll find that invaluable. Now, I don't know about you, but I cannot wait to get started. So if you can't wait to get started, clap emoji. Give me a clap emoji. Or if you can clap, maybe I'll hear you. Let everybody hear you. All right. So that's it. You ready? I said, you ready? Well, as we do on the Savvy Show, then say my name. Savvy. Let's go. All right. So where do we start? Well, we start with the journey, and every journey has a beginning. And what better way to get started than with the origin story of the organization that has brought us here today, IBGR. So it is my sincere pleasure to introduce the founders of IBGR, Donna Kunde and William Eastman. Clap emoji. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Oh, thank you, David. I'm going to put you front and center there, Bill.
People don't know that you're the face of the network, and I'm supposedly.
Not
today. See why now.
So for me, it's always fun to talk about the origin story. And what hooked me way back when was your story about your trip to Africa, Bill, and how this started so long ago. Can you tell me that story again?
Yeah, it was a little over 30 years ago when it happened, but I was working as a large corporate consultant, and I had a pretty good portfolio of accounts, and I really liked the business. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You're traveling all the time, etc. And I make lots of relationships in the job, and I wound up working with a company that was contracted to USAID, and that's the United States government that provides money to the United Nations to do things. And it wound up that they needed somebody to go to Ghana, Africa, and help them on their training. They were doing business development work, in many ways similar to some of the things that we talk about here on the network, but they asked me to go there and help in the development piece. And originally I was going to go, nah, because I looked at what they were paying versus what I was making, and it was like, I can't afford that. I mean, it's just the differential was too large. However, on second thought, money is not everything, and I went, there's never going to be another opportunity to do this, and I went to Accra, Ghana, and I fell in love with Ghana. What a great place. But really what hit me was we were working a 3-week program. It was kind of an incubator, accelerator, before those terms were commonly used, and we were just helping business owners get going. And what I realized, a couple of things. Number one is, people in the United States complain about how difficult it is to do business here. You have no idea what it's like to do business in places where logistics don't work, communications are challenged, and so it is really difficult. And the successful entrepreneurs in Africa are really successful entrepreneurs because they overcome things that we don't have to deal with. Well, what I realized was that I should be here, that I should be doing what I'm doing with them and not what I was doing in the corporate world, because there is some differences, but fundamentally what we were doing in large corporations was exactly what these people needed. And it just took a number of years to figure out how do we solve the problem of getting that information there, because in the consulting business, you sell time. Well, and it's pretty high priced time. Well, when you're dealing with small business owners, you're not selling time, and you're not selling time at any type of price. And so how do we develop a medium where we can provide the same type of consulting advice we were providing to IBM and all those companies to the people who really, really needed it? And we've tried 4 or 5 different business models, and we've come down to a internet-based radio station, or you could say an internet-based live stream podcasting platform, depending upon what makes the most sense to you, is the way that we're delivering it. And the thing that really has me excited is the talent that's on the station, on the network, is incredible around the world. And I'll close with this, is that we are entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. Nobody on here is a college professor teaching a college class. We don't give any degrees out. We're talking about our insights and our applications and the things that we've learned over the years to save you the pain of going through the same thing. So I'm really happy for everybody to be here. I'm excited about this. This thing was a dream, 21 months ago, and now we are in 178 countries around the world.
Yeah, and that's so awesome when I wake up with that. So from Africa to WNTW, there was a radio station in Chester, Virginia. I'm going to bump you out now, Bill. And it was just 2 years ago, 4 days ago, if you can do that kind of math, on October 1st of 2019, I was getting ready to do MC a leadership event, and I talked to the organizer, and I said, hey, don't you know that guy at the radio station? Let's see if we can get on the radio. And that was the first day we met. Do you remember that, Bill?
I do. You were in the studio, and you were in with Mike King.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was actually my start in radio. What I thought was funny is at the time I had done a vision board, and I had a bunch of microphones at it. I wasn't doing podcasts or anything, and I thought, I was going to do a podcast. And then I said, I'm gonna do a radio show. And then here I am now with IBGR, a global radio station. Who would have known? And that was the pandemic pivot that we did back in January of 2020 when they sold the station and decided to give it a go. And how many countries are we in now?
178.
178 countries listening in around the world. We love you all. 178 countries from around the world listening in. We have on-air talent from around the world who are bringing their expertise. And we call ourselves the world of business at your fingertips, because that's exactly what it is. It's an app, it's listening, it's on demand, it's whatever the business owner needs. So then we talk about, you see the 365 Business Maker, Building Business for Good, 365 Business Maker. That's our newest product that has evolved out of these last almost 2 years, because we were getting feedback from business owners that the radio is great, but it wasn't intimate enough. How can you help me? How can you help me, the business owner? So we have this 365 Business Maker idea that you'll hear more about as we go through the night, and that led to this forum, because then we said, well, how can we bring business owners together to network and to get to know each other and to collaborate? And Bill, as we wrap up our time here, did you want to talk about, with the business forum, you have your idea on the new business model, which kind of fits into that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that happened to all of us is the pandemic, when it came through. If you're already running a virtual business and you're comfortable with Zoom, let's say, not that we're promoting that product, but everybody uses it, and your customers the pandemic was not a huge issue to you. However, if you were in a traditional business, you weren't virtual, you weren't face-to-face, or I should say all your selling was face-to-face with customers, that this was really bad. And, for me, being an entrepreneur for the last 40 years, the idea that the government could come in and say to you, you're non-essential, and put you out of business, And you may have spent 10, 15 years of your life and invested all this money to be put out of business by some bureaucrat. Come on now. I mean, if bureaucrats were as smart as entrepreneurs, they'd be on our side of the table. They're not. They're on the other side. Why? Because they need somebody to pay them. We don't. We write our own paychecks. And so what we were working on was an idea of how could we, and I'll say this nicely, how could we idiot-proof our businesses? How could we, there's going to be another pandemic or there's going to be another situation just like that comes along. How can we build a business where not only can we get through it, but the disruption of whatever's next, we will thrive in that environment. And so that is what we've been working on this year, and I've got a new show on it. But that's where we're at, because what we want to do is we want to insulate everybody as much as possible for forces outside your control. We're stuck with the economies that we have. Yeah, we may have some control by how we vote, but fundamentally, as entrepreneurs, what we're good at is you deal the cards, I'll win the hand.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So I think our time is up. Maybe since we're the owners, they don't put us off the stage like they used to. But I got to turn it back over to David now for the next part of this, because we've got some great speakers lined up and we've got some fantastic networking. So David, I'm going to put you in the spotlight.
All right. Well, you just said what I was going to say, Donna. So
sorry.
coming to the
I'll take it
back. I was actually thinking about some the best advice one of my favorite college professors gave me, and he said, "Never become a bureaucrat or a college professor." So I'm glad I didn't, because then I wouldn't be here on IBGR. So thank you, Bill, thank you, Donna, for that. And yes, indeed, IBGR is by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, and we're trying to help as many people as possible, as many entrepreneurs, as many business owners as possible. And I'm glad you introduced the 365 Business Maker. The 365 Business Maker is an exciting initiative conceived by IBGR, created to provide real-world business coaching and tangible outcomes for dynamic entrepreneurs and business startups. So right now, we're going to tell you a little bit more about that and how you can be involved with the 365 Business Maker. And we're going to bring on three of our dynamic expert consultants to kind of shed some light on what 365 Business Maker is all about. Richard Miller, Bill Eastman again, and Jeremy Gray. We're going to start with Richard. Starting with marketing, Richard Miller is the brand director at 3 Method Marketing and Crispin Co. in Adelaide, South Australia. He's a serial entrepreneur, having created and built a number of successful startup companies, and also happens to be the director of marketing right here at IBGR. So Richard's going to tell us some more about 365 Business Maker. Welcome to the stage, Richard Miller.
Thanks, David. Well, thank you for that intro. It was written very well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try my hand at technology here, and I'm going to try and screen share with you. So let's have a look if this works, and you guys can tell me what you can see. Hopefully it's not my face. Can you see my screen? Now, it should say building a meaningful brand over there. Hopefully it does. Excellent. I've got the thumbs up, right? Well, that's great. Now, so what I want to do is, as part of the 365 Business Maker program, there is a marketing module, and that is my piece, because we've got marketing, we've got operations, and we've got finance. So what I want to do is I want to give you a bit of an insight into what the marketing module of the Business Maker actually entails. And the piece that I want to talk about is building a meaningful brand. Now, what does that mean? I think the word brand has been a very overused but misunderstood word. I think that we throw the word brand around without really knowing what it means. So why is it important to build a meaningful brand? And the key word there is meaningful. Well, let me tell you, people buy for 2 reasons. They only buy for 2 reasons. One is out of need, and the other is about desire. Okay? So if you've got a product or a service that is about need, then or desire, people are going to buy from someone that sells that product. Now, you're one of those people. Shock horror, guess what? You're probably not the only company out there that sells that product or service. So the fact of the matter is that we shouldn't be selling our product or service. We should be selling our brand. We should be selling why we do what we do and how we do it, because the objective is not to get people to buy the stuff, it's to get people to buy the stuff from us. And that is what brand does. That is what quality brand does. Now, the objective around that and the way we achieve it is by making a brand that resonates with our customer. All right. So as a takeaway from that, and just as an overview, people buy for two reasons. It's need or desire, and they buy what you do and why you do it, not necessarily what you sell. Now, there's a guy I'm sure everyone's heard of called Simon Sinek. It's definitely worth buying his book. It's called Start With Why. I read it. It changed my life. Do the same because it's a quality publication. So that's the foundations of what the marketing platform is all about, or the marketing module in the 365 Business Maker. So firstly, brand versus branding. Very, very confusing subject, and people often get them mistaken. So, but before we cover that, I want to talk to you about this thing called the brand journey. Now, this is a pretty interesting thought. Every company in the world, I don't care how big or small you are, has customers that sit in one of the 5 circles you can see on your screen. Now, from left to right, there is unknown, known, something, respected, and loved. Let me tell you what all that means. If you're a startup company with no brand equity and you are unknown, you are completely disposable. People don't care whether you exist tomorrow or not because they don't know you and they don't trust you. Now, all companies start there. But when we become known to people, we start to build a bit more equity. And then we might be something to them. They may have transacted with us once or twice in the past, and we become that the brand means something to them. Eventually, we might be able to win their respect, and ultimately, we want them to love us. Now, a perfect example of a brand that is loved, and I talk about this a lot, is Apple. Now, you know your brand is loved when people will literally sleep outside your stores the night before a product launch in order to make sure they get the first one. Now, when the new iPhone comes out, no one cares what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it does, what's new about it. They just know they're going to buy it because Apple has built such brand loyalty that people will never move away from that product. If you're an Apple user, you will never go to Android. It is that simple. They've not tried to market to everybody. They've particularly targeted an audience, and they've built that quality brand equity to the point where they are loved. Now, the vertical lines you can see between each of those circles represent the barriers to get to the next stage, and that is what a quality marketing plan will help you to do. So what we do is we identify where your target market sit in that journey, and then we figure out a way to get them to the ultimate of your brand being loved. So your brand is essentially what you are famous for. It is what you promise. It's what's unique about you. It's what you mean to your customer. All right? Why they buy from you and not your competitors. Branding, on the other hand, to clarify, is the visual and audible messaging that represents your brand. So it's your logo, it's your colors, your shapes, the jingle, the advertising materials. But none of that can be developed until we understand the brand. So how do we do that? Well, luckily, I have a methodology. So as part of 3-method marketing, we developed a system called the brand arc. Okay? So the brand arc forms your brand architecture, hence the name. I know, smart, right? So the architecture of your brand is all of the layers that are required for you to fully understand it and for your consumer to fully understand it. And this is what it looks like. So as part of the Business Maker program, we're going to build this for your business. So we're going to figure out what your mission and your vision and your insight is into your business. That's the foundations of your brand. You need to understand where you're going before you can actually figure out a plan to get there. So your mission is a pretty internal statement. It's all about what you want to achieve out of the business, whereby the vision is an inspirational piece that is designed to inspire you, your team, and the outside world to continue to achieve your mission. The insight is about where you've come from and what you do and why it's important to people. And then when we move into the second layer of the brand arc, the framework, that then talks about the pillars of the business, the unshakable, non-negotiable morals of what you do. Now, the important part of the pillars is to make sure that they have some depth and some meaning. And we often do this exercise with people where we ask them to tell us, what are your unshakable, absolutely non-negotiable morals? What is it that you want people to know about you when you're not in the room that you will not negotiate on? Quite often, they will say things like honesty and trust and things like that. Now, if you were to assume honesty is a given, then you wouldn't need to say that. You wouldn't need to sell honesty as being one of your pillars. So when people talk about honesty, then what they really mean, that there's a much deeper meaning to honesty than what they actually give away. You know, I talked about this in my show this morning, and I had this discussion with a guy who is a property investment expert, and he said that honesty was one of his pillars. Now, when we drilled down on that, he said that the reason he said honesty is because when he tries to sell a property to a potential client, an investment property that he genuinely believes is right for their portfolio, he will be very open and transparent with the reporting that he shows, which is quite unusual. And he's got a proprietary software system that goes really deep into the reasons why that property is right. So what he meant by honesty was actually transparency. So transparency as a pillar means far more than honesty. So hopefully you can see how there's a bit of a difference there. Now, so what we do whilst we're building your brand arc is we'll go through all of those things during the 365 Business Maker and make sure you've built a meaningful brand that you can then talk to graphic designers about in order to build your branding, that you can then talk to people in the outside world about, because when we get to the face, we start talking about the personality of your business and your pitch statement, your elevator pitch, the one-liner that people need to hear in order to want to know more. So we'll write that, and it's all based on the foundations and the framework of your brand. And then, of course, there's the ultimate tagline, which sums up your business in 1, 2, 3, 4 words. So it sums everything up in totality. This is a crucial document, and it isn't just a marketing document. It actually helps inform your business plan, and it will help you to understand who you want in your business. You know, so if you're looking to recruit, do those people fit with your vision and your insight and your mission? Do they understand your promise, and do they fit within that as a personality type? So it's a critical document that is really important to your business, and it's very important to get right. So as a few takeaway points, meaningful brands have depth and purpose. Now, they create long-term relationships, not one-off transactions. You can't sell a brand that you yourself don't understand, okay? So if you've had one of those shower moments where your creative brain has become loose and you've come up with a name for your business or a tagline or whatever, has it got depth and meaning, or does it just resonate with you? So when you've got a fully functioning and well thought out brand arc, you can keep yourself in check and make sure that your outlandish creativity, when you come up with ideas for your business, actually fit within the framework of your brand arc. Now, creating a unique selling proposition for your business actually eliminates your competition. Because if we acknowledge that people buy why you do what you do and how you do it, then essentially you're building a business that is untouchable by anyone else, because it is no longer about the product or service you sell, it's about why you sell it. Now, I know that I'm running out of time. I think I'm getting a couple of nods from Donna. If you want to make God laugh, tell me your plans. Woody Allen said that. And as much as that might be true, Woody, the fact is that we do need to have a plan. So what you get out of the 365 Business Maker in the marketing module is you get your brand art. We build your brand architecture. And then we talk about effective branding and how to create logos, colors, etc., and how to brief a designer on that based on the principles of your brand arc. And then we will write a marketing plan. So I'm going to talk a bit more later on during the meeting about 365 Business Maker in general. But for now, thanks very much for listening. That's been me, Richard Miller, on how to build a sustainable brand.
All right. Big hand for Richard. Thank you, sir. And now we're going to keep it moving. And we are going to bring up our next speaker, who is someone you may recognize from about 17 minutes ago, co-founder of IBGR. So this gentleman he's very modest. He doesn't like talking about his experience too much, so I'll do that for him. He is actually a Fortune 50 consultant, serial entrepreneur who has worked with the likes of IBM, GM, Glaxo, Kmart, and my favorite, carry around in a computer bag, CD for free internet company, AOL. You guys remember that with the dial-up? And here we have, coming to the stage, Mr. Bill Eastman.
Thanks. When people do that to you, it almost always sounds like an obituary, like you're at the funeral. And some of those companies, when I was working with AOL, you talk about hot. When we started working with them, they had 1,000 employees. A year later, they had 5,000 employees. Now, part of that was an acquisition, but those were wild times. And the thing that I enjoyed about that is understanding how these different businesses operated, and that there was no universal way that the most successful companies operated, except they found their own way. And it reminds me of a quote, I forget who came up with it, but the quote was, all failing companies look alike. All successful companies are totally different. And I think that's very true in that they find their own way. Well, what Richard talked about in his start is that he was talking about from the marketing perspective, because let's face it, if you're not selling the right thing to the right people at the right time, you don't have a business, okay? And part of that is in that branding journey. All right, so now you have a good sense of what's going to go in the market. Now the question you have is, well, how do I make the thing? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop up mine here as I'm talking, and I'm going to take you through what I have as some of my notes about the operations piece, because that's the piece that I'm going to be doing during the 365 Business Maker. And by the way, let me talk about why we call it a 365 Business Maker, and that is, it is a 365-day program. In other words, if you look at the other incubators out there, and we've looked at this hard, if you're not familiar with the market, you got incubators which are really focused on either pre-startup or right at the very beginning, and then you have accelerators, which are companies that are established, but now what they're trying to do is scale up and really grow in a sustainable way. And so we're starting with the incubator. But with all of those, they just, I don't know, the stuff that's being done out there in the different programs that we looked at is you look at the people who are running those, and you begin to see that they are not serial entrepreneurs. They're not people that have been through the mill. Now, that's not everybody. There's some really good ones going on out there that I take a look at. But what we decided to do was to say, okay, what is really the truth of a startup after this is my fifth? And that is, startups are not businesses yet. All right, now let me define that. I don't mean that you haven't been incorporated and you've got your certifications and your licenses, and you filed with your respective internal revenue service or internal revenue, or whoever it is in your company that you got to do all that stuff in. The deal here is that until you have proven the business idea where Richard started, you have to prove that what you are going to produce and make is going to, in fact, satisfy a need that customers have, and they're going to be willing to pay for it. And so operationally, the challenge you have is that most people, when they talk about operations, they go into an existing facility. When I worked at General Motors and I worked at Delphi, we were trying to implement lean manufacturing into an existing process. Well, as a startup entrepreneur, you don't have any existing processes. You don't have anything that you can say, okay, let's build from this. And so what you really have to do is have a different mindset to say, this is an experiment, and what I have to do is figure out how to make this thing in a way that we get it reasonably good very fast, so that if we don't have it exactly right, we can kind of modify and fix it, because I also have the challenge of I don't have enough money. And so let me go over here and hit the second one, slide. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, here we go. Here's the challenges you got. And it's capital and talent. Those are the two things that you got to operate with. And the talent side is it's typically you and somebody else, and that is part of if it's the founding team, it's the soft cost. You're not paying yourselves. You're basically throwing your bodies at everything. And then there's the issue of capital. And so here's the dilemma that you have, is that do I go out and hire people to come in and help operationally get this business going, knowing that the second I do that, I'm rapidly decreasing the amount of time that I have to get this new product or service to market. On the other hand, if we try to go it alone and we're going to bootstrap it and we're going to do nothing but soft cost our time into this, we may never take it to market. So one of the things I've got to look at is how can I build a process that is somewhat experimental to give me an idea of where the market is, so that if it doesn't work, I fail very fast. And then once I've got something that works, then I can take it to the next level. Okay. So that gets into this whole idea of creating the minimally viable product or service. And that, you probably have heard that terminology. I believe it started off with the E-Myth, Gerber's book. I thought it was an excellent piece of work, talking about working on the business or in the business, but also here. And that minimally viable product or service means what's the least that you can turn out that you can sell. And so that's going to force you to make some decisions about how you make your capital expenditures. It's going to force you to make decisions about what process that you build. It's going to force you to make decisions about what customers are you going to approach at first. Because as Richard talked about with customers, you may say that I have 4 or 5 core customers, but when I'm starting off, I cannot go after all those different customers. So which one of those customers can I go after to come up with a product or service that I can sell to them, and it's going to be part of the learning process. Now, do I tell them that we are a startup and we don't know what we're doing? Of course not, because we wouldn't do that. It's unethical to say that to a customer. But it's also the issue of, I have enough expertise to build this for you, and then what we're going to do is going to work it together. I have a good friend of mine who took a company from 150 million. I know this is an existing company as opposed to a startup, but he used this basic approach. He had a customer that he found that he could build with them. Think about that for a second. And because he built with them, he came up with a new product that nobody else had. And all of a sudden, he gets a phone call from a venture capitalist saying, I got a check here with your name on it. And it turned out to be his $150 million company was valued at $454 million. And he hadn't intended to sell the company until he got that phone call. And so that minimally viable product or service is absolutely critical to design. And how do you do that? Well, the way that you get that done is in your development process. So one of the things we're going to be talking about as we move into operations is, how do I use the principles of Agile to build that first project, to build that first product, to build that first service? And how are we going to do that? And the beauty of Agile, and I've used both Agile and Lean, and they are quality tools, but they're also philosophical approaches to solving the problem, in that in lean manufacturing, you know what the end result is. And so the currency you're trading is in cost. You're trying to keep your cost down to keep it to a minimum. In Agile, the other thing about it is that you know what the outcome is going to be. In Agile, you start off with not really having a good idea of what the final product is, and what you do is you solve the first problem first, then you go to the second problem, then you go to the third, and let's say there were 10 steps in this process you identified. By 7 or 8, you have a pretty good idea of what the product or service is that you want to sell. When we get into the operations piece, I'm going to be talking about that particular component of it, and how do I map that, number one. And number two is that how do I begin to look at the cost structure here? And that's going to be really important, because when I hand this off to Jeremy, that is where he's going to take it, because if I'm going to make this thing, I'm going to have to make sure that I understand how the process is working and where are my cost items, so that when it comes time for pricing, I have a pretty good handle on what it costs me. So now once you've built this, you're ready to scale. Okay, and then so that's what the 3 weeks operational experience is going to be. You're going to get tools from me. I'm not going to do a lot of theory. It's going to be do this. It's going to be workbooks, and we're going to be using the radio and some of the podcasts that I've done to help you out. So that's what I've got. Thanks for letting me have this short segment. I'm going to turn it back now to David.
All right. Thanks, Bill, for that. Great stuff. Great stuff. We'll keep it moving. And we will move right into our next speaker, and that is Jeremy Gray. So Jeremy Gray is the owner of Three Continents Consulting, based in Singapore. He has over 35 years of experience at the C-suite level with an American MNC. He has worked in Europe, North America, and most recently, Asia. 7 years ago, he founded his consultancy business focusing on supporting entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized enterprises achieve their goals and aspirations. So let's bring on Jeremy Gray.
Thank you, David. And I'm sure many of you out there are beginning to go, finance. Ugh. Many entrepreneurs aren't that fun and find finance fun. And let's be honest, only a CFO or an accountant likes writing a financial plan. It's not something many people enjoy, but it really is a necessity. And that's what I'm going to talk about over the next session: pricing, writing your financial plan, and maybe the most critical item to you is managing your cash flow. The day you run out of cash is the day your business dies. So let me bring up my slides. Hopefully you can see them. So, why do you need a finance plan? Why do you need a cash flow? It's really because you want to have a roadmap of where you're going to go. They are both essential if you want to avoid surprises as you grow your business. Your business growth is not going to happen as you expect it to. You're going to find surprises. So you need to think about, why am I not making any money? What's wrong with my price strategy? Why aren't I making money? Where's all my cash gone? You'll start with a certain amount of cash, whether you're bootstrapping or doing it yourself, but you want to know where that money's going. And why is starting my business costing me more than I thought? It's almost certain to, folks. I've got to be honest. Starting your business is probably going to take you a little bit longer than you think. It's probably going to cost you a little bit more than you think. And my objective with the 365 business paper is maybe not make this fun. I mean, I would enjoy it. You might not, but maybe not make fun. But at least make the process not painful and satisfying. At the end of the day, you're going to have a product that brings you value. What does a good financial business plan deliver? You're going to start by using the work you've done with Richard, the work you've done with Bill, when you've been understanding your marketing and operations. That's going to provide you the base to what you need, the foundation to grow your business. The outcome, if you do it right, and with my support, there's no reason why you shouldn't, would be to develop a rigorous financial plan that you can present to potential backers. If you're going out for outside funding, you're going to need a business plan, no doubt about it. Suppliers, you may wonder why I say suppliers. Well, managing your cash is vital for a business. And as a small business, as Richard says, you're starting out as unknown, right? No one knows you. And CFOs like me, when I was working for a multinational, won't give you credit. Right? They're going to say, I don't know these people. They can pay cash up front. But if you have a solid business plan, you give yourself a chance that you'll be able to get credit from a supplier, at least some level of credit, and that's going to help. And of course, you've got other stakeholders that you're going to be talking to. Maybe your potential customers might ask you what your plans are. Now, you won't want to share your financials with them, but the basic idea can certainly help them. And it gives you a roadmap, right? This is where I expect to be at this time, at this point. Because if you don't know where you're going, you don't know if you've gone off course. So it gives you a roadmap to track progress. And it's a guide, do I need to change my business model? Do I need to make some changes? Am I burning through cash faster than I thought? Do I need to make some changes here? So it'll give you all of that. And in the finance module, which I'll be guiding you through if you join the 365 Business Made, we're going to talk about your pricing strategy, or how do you price for profit? Because at the end of the day, we're all in this for money, right? We're all in this for profit. Your financial forecast or planning for your success going forwards, and cash flow. How much do you need to get started? Pricing. There are so many pricing strategies out there. I think I did an IBGR program on pricing strategies, and I didn't cover them all, but I think I covered about 15 to 16 different strategies. So there are many pricing strategies out there, but what's the right one for your business? What's the right pricing strategy for you to get to where you want to go to? How do you balance market penetration goals with profitability targets? As Richard says, you're starting out, no one knows you. Are they going to spend money? Is your pricing strategy, your launch pricing strategy, the same pricing strategy you want when your business is mature? Almost certainly not. The other thing. The psychology of why people buy. Because I'm a finance guy, I have a slightly different twist on this than Richard has, but it's very, very similar. But I believe people buy from you for one of three reasons. You save them time, you save them money, or you make them feel good. Now, you can see how that ties into what Richard said. But the important thing is about the finance part of that. If you're saving them time, you can put a value to that. If you're saving them money, you can put a value to that. And if you're making them feel good with the right way, you can understand what that is worth to your customers. How do you assess your market and competitive position to understand your value proposition? What are people prepared to pay for your products? Now, the best way to do this is undoubtedly by doing value pricing, where you try to understand how much your customers, your potential customers, are willing to pay for your product. But it can be a challenge. I know many companies I've worked with who espouse value pricing, but at the end of the day, they fall back on cost plus. And because they think it's too difficult to do value pricing. It's not difficult, it's rigorous, it's a little bit more time consuming, but think about the importance of that. Bill talked about, your costs of setting up your manufacturing or whatever process you do. And from that, you can develop a break-even product. How many of my services do I need to sell to break even? How many of my products do I need to sell to break even? And by this, you can get to your break-even analysis. And it's a very important part of understanding the price that you can charge and the price you need to charge to get to at least a break-even proposition. And that's the first measure of success for an entrepreneurial business. You're breaking even. The financial plan, and I think to make it a little bit easier, think about the financial plan as putting numbers against your visions and expectations. You have a vision for your company, you have expectations for your company, and you think about putting that, and it'll help you get a lot of multiple aspects of your business. I won't go through them all here, but you can see them, staffing levels, etc., etc. And how do you mitigate risks? That's an important part of understanding your financial plan. So cash flow, most cash flow products out there, you'll find, assume you're already in business. I've got a cash flow forecast I will share with you, which starts from the day you found your business. Key elements of working capital, focus on cash collection, avoiding the growth to bankruptcy. We'll talk about that, the risk of growing your business so fast that you go bankrupt. And finally, let's look at funding methods. Can you bootstrap, or will you need funding? So finance module, it may not be the most exciting module as part of this, but it is a vital part of preparing yourself and ensuring that you're not in the 90% of businesses that don't succeed. Good finance, good cash flow, good pricing strategy, and you'll be in that top 10%. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. And back to you, David.
All right. Jeremy, thank you. Thank you. All right. Great stuff. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's throw some emojis into the air on our screen. There we go. There we go. Hearts, claps. Excellent. Thank you so much. We're going to head to a quick 5-minute break to give you a chance to do whatever it is you need to do in 5 minutes. Before we go there, I want to invite you all to take our polls. There are 2 polls in our chat over in the poll tab over by the chat. The first is, what major challenge are you facing over the next 6 months? So you can take that poll. And there's another poll. What interests you most about this networking opportunity today? So we'd love to hear what you have to say about those 2 questions. Time for our break. So we're going to step away for about 5 minutes, grab some water, grab some breakfast, lunch, dinner, what have you, and come on back for the next portion of our show, where we're going to jump right into the mindset of success and a coaching panel. We're going to learn from some more experts. So we look forward to seeing you in about 5 minutes. Come on back.